Okay, so this is probably the closest form of like self-therapy I have right now that doesn't include relapsing to PMO. It's technically speaking day 182, I think that's the day it is. But you know, and I might not be feeling as bad as I was a bit earlier, especially with that little bit of caffeine there. But it's been a really tough day. I've ended up glancing at some stuff. I pulled myself away from it before I went any further, but I'm definitely in that sort of state of mind. And you know, I almost feel like it is only a matter of time. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be the day after tomorrow, it could be a week from now, you know, could be 2 weeks. I don't know, but seems like a relapse is really on its way. It's kind of already started. And man, you know, like one thing I realized, you know, it's sort of like maybe it's something I'm repeating from the past, but I sort of realized, you know, it's like I could go and I could relapse right now, and it would feel great in the moment, you know. And my point isn't even like about the after effect, but it's sort of like, you know, I sit here and say, oh, this is day 182, day 182 of Nofap of this streak, blah 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 blah, and it's like, you know, that's me imputing meaning to something, you know, giving this day meaning. You know, in the wider world, this is, you know, it's Sunday. It's the what is it, is it the 18th? Yeah, it's 18th of April 2021. But even that is like imparting meaning to a day, you know. Uh, you know, it's kind of weird because it's sort of like you think about like a calendar of the months, the days, you know, of a year, and it's sort of like that's all something we've imposed upon, you know, this time. If you go back to sort of like, you know, prehistory, when it was just all sort of hunter-gatherer survival, you know, sort of deal, uh, it was just, you know, sunrise and sunset and the time between that, you know, and then time after that, and it was all just like surviving from one day to the next, and they didn't think about, you know, what month it was, what day it was, what year it was. It's something we have all like imposed upon the world, and it's almost like I think of Nofap. It's kind of like this is all something that it only means something to myself or those who have chosen to, you know, agree that this means something or has value. You know, oh, how many days you haven't fapped, or changes that have occurred or you think have occurred, you know, because you decided to not fap. And sorry, I'm getting distracted. It looks like from my mirror, like in back, there might be some smoke back there. I don't know if somebody started a fire or something, but anyways, but you know, it's kind of like we've all had to agree upon that, you know, this nofap thing means something, that it has value and purpose and all that. And it's almost like when I think of the idea of like waiting till marriage, you know, so many guys who are waiting till marriage, and there's far more guys who are waiting till marriage than women, to be honest with you. Oh dang it, I think that really is a fire back there, more smoke coming up. But you know, it's like far more guys waiting until marriage than women in reality. And it's like some of these guys, you know, their ideal is, and they hope that they'll meet someone who like will appreciate that, you know, and will have saved herself for them. And women don't think like that, you know. And it's the same thing with this whole nofap thing. Like, okay, like what real value and truth does this actually have, you know? Because like when I started off, you know, this streak, and I was like, you know, getting to the point where I was wanting to leave that other job to get a new job, it was like I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna start things off on a different foot. You know, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna be no fap all day, every day. at that job, because I had times at the old job where, I would occasionally spaz out, and I would end up in conflict with my coworkers. And those were like tough days, and it made me feel like crap. And I felt like, man, I need to like quit this, once and for all. Thinking like, when you're in your 30s, you still shouldn't be fapping, and thinking about how it would affect, my ability to, interact with other people, like my coworkers, some of whom are great, great individuals, great human beings, and, are at the very least like better than the folks I dealt with in college. And, man, it was like these last 6 months I did this, and, look what happened, It's like the year and 3 months I worked at the other place, where I was trying to go through a month, 2 months, 3 months. I almost got through 6 months this one time in Nofap, and then it was like this weird set of circumstances that caused me to relapse. But it's like that year and 3 months, it was like I got so much more accomplished, financially at least, and even educationally, than I did in these last 6 months, where I was like hardcore Nofap, not even looking at anything. Not relying on that whole, oh, I'm gonna wean myself off of this by watching occasionally but not fapping. I didn't even do that. I was like super like dedicated and strict about this sort of stuff, and look what happened. Because it feels like pretty much everything in my life is kind of like falling apart right now. Some of it, slower than others. Like, obviously I lost the job. I'm at this point where I've basically given up on that class, because, I'm looking at it going like, even if I get in all my assignments from here on out, and I don't lose any, well, I would have to basically have almost like perfect scores in order to get a B in the class. And, I'm not officially in grad school. This is more like, yet again, me trying to get my GPA up enough so that when I do apply, I don't get auto rejected by the grad school. That's like the first ring of admission, is just to get into the grad school, and then after that it's getting into the program itself. And there's, various levels of acceptance there, where it's like, okay, if you get in conditionally, then they want further requirements to be fulfilled. And it's sort of like me wanting to be at a point when I do apply that it'll just be like a smooth sort of walk in, but that's all preceded by a huge slog. Maybe not a huge slog, but a significant slog of work. And getting a B in this class would be like the equivalent of getting a C or a C minus in undergrad. And I can't even be pulling that off with all the stuff that's gone down, And like having been in a really, I consider it to be a hostile work environment. Apparently HR didn't, because, the main instigator who started things off on that direction, he had already left. But being in that kind of an environment, it was not conducive to me doing well. And it's like, I'm sitting here now feeling like everything's falling apart. Like I say, I lost the job. That was the one that went the fastest. That was like, it didn't even take them like more than, I think, like 48 hours to decide that they didn't want me working there anymore. And yeah, the girl got fired. I got that justice or revenge thing, even though it's not necessarily like, it doesn't feel, I don't know. Part of it kind of felt good, but it wasn't like, good enough, so to speak. But, not thinking about it in terms of levels. It's like, I lost the job. And, this class, it's all part of it. It feels like the last few months have been like a complete and utter like washout. And it's not like I can't recover or bounce back, but, I'm sitting here like this, in this sort of state, and, I'm thinking about that comment left by, I think it's like MJ Red Cloud, I think is the guy's, channel. You can check out his channel, show him some support, but, it was basically, man, it's pretty, interesting comment, or insightful comment, or relatable comment, because it, I think it all kind of has to do with, like, this common experience among young guys, whether they're in their 20s or their 30s. It's like when you don't have a purpose. And I think this kind of relates to perhaps my response to Alex's comment about finding myself in engineering. It's more this whole idea of, like, you don't have a purpose, you don't have a drive, you don't feel like you're making progress, you feel like you're being defeated on all fronts. And when you're in that kind of a state, I mean, a relapse seems like the only way out, short of something, something worse than that. But, like, it really does feel like that, it's kind of like back when I was holding down the job and I was, making the money, and I was paying off these debts and making that kind of progress. And I, especially back after after I got my final grade back for the last class, and I was sitting there with an A-, and I had, I had, like, things mapped out, so I'm gonna, like, I was gonna pay off this student loan, and, I hit that strat, I got that done. It was like I was out there in the wider world. I was conquering new territory. I was knocking stuff down. I hadn't gotten to the point where, like, I was staring that, that student loan that my uncle signed on to, like, in the face, and wasn't, hadn't, like, paid off all the accrued interest. It wasn't taking a, bite out of the principal. I wasn't at that point, and then I got to that point, and getting that A-, to be able to sit there and say, hey, I got an A- in an engineering class, an upper division engineering class, feeling like I was out, conquering, leading my armies to victory, so to speak. And, it's almost like, I think about it in sort of a metaphorical sense. It's kind of like you have a successful conquering civilization sending its armies out, into the vast, the vast yonder, and their armies are conquering new territory. They're coming into contact with new peoples. They're seeing new geographic features. They're exploring. They're, building an entire civilization, an entire system, an empire, And then it's kind of like there's that one point where they suffer some massive loss, and then that kind of opens up the way to, like, more losses. And it's kind of like that massive loss is the thing that shows that they're not invincible. And then all those enemies of them, of that civilization, all their enemies who were, on the run and having to seek out, the high up mountain passes and such to hide up in, so they couldn't be, caught by this supposedly invincible conquering imperial civilization. They start going, hey, so-and-so defeated, that empire. And, that's the case. Well, why can't we? And they start, forming up their confederation and start launching attacks. And, you start having sort of this retrenchment, You think about like the Roman Empire, for instance, when they lost the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, and they lost like 20,000 legionaries, and, like, I think it was I don't know if it was a 1-day battle or if it was a 3-day battle. They lost, like, pretty much an entire army. And that is oftentimes marked as sort of this point, this turning point, where it's like, the imperial expansion, began to slow down, or it just stopped entirely. And, they started drawing up their lines. And here marked the, boundary of the Roman Empire. You had the Rhine, the Danube, in Europe. And following that, it's kind of like you saw these, like, civil wars springing up, civil strife, Romans killing Romans, vying for the imperial throne. All of that combined with against the background of, you know, barbarian invasions and plagues and economic stagnation and decline, and eventually all those factors combined to leading into, you know, the Western Empire being, you know, lost, and Rome being, you know, sacked, and all of that. And it's almost like, you know, you can see this on a psychological level as well. You know, the analysis has been done on other civilizations and groups and peoples, where it's like you see, like, even in their literature, their philosophy, their way of thinking, their output in terms of like scientific and engineering and, you know, technical accomplishments and art and architecture. It's like you see, certain distinct changes in the phases where it's like you can kind of tell, like, okay, in this phase of their civilization, they were very much hopeful and driven, and they felt they could accomplish something. They could build a whole new world according to their own dictates, you know, their own desires, their own aims and goals and such. And then there was this point in there where, like, it started to shift from that, and they started becoming less and less sure of themselves and less, you know, believing in their ability to go out there and, you know, conquer the world and make it their oyster and that sort of thing. And eventually you see sort of the decline, you know, this turning inwards, and you know, politically that gets manifested through, you know, civil wars, for instance, you know, other forms of civil strife. That's on a political level, but if you think about an individual level, relating this to Nofap, you know, it's kind of like I look at my life now, and it's so small. It's like all these different things have fallen apart. I've lost this, I've lost that. Now I'm drawn in upon myself, sitting in my room, and there's that increasing desire to go back to PMO, to at least be able to sort of alleviate that set of emotions, and to sort of simulate what it would be like if I was able to conquer and go out there and, you know, sexually speaking, at least get with these babes, you know, get with these women, and feel like, you know, I had what it took to attract them and draw them in and get with them, you know. And at the same time, it's almost like, this is sort of an interesting point that I've kind of happened upon. But, you know, it's like kind of when guys will talk about their PMO addiction and what kind of content they watch, it's almost that the content says less about the PMO industry or the Nofap movement in general, but it says a lot about how those individuals see themselves. And I remember reading some article a long time ago about, you know, the rise of certain types of PMO material and what it really said about a lot of guys, or what, you know, the PMO industry was kind of selling, in a sense. And it was almost like, guys will search out for PMO content that, at least in their mind, it sort of reflects back to them, you know, what they might consider a realizable fantasy of theirs, you know. Like, it might be about girls they think they could get with in real life, and then they want to sort of act it out, that sort of deal. And when you're searching on more and more extreme forms of content, and you're getting into stuff that, like, you would presumably never act upon in real life, it's kind of like you're saying about yourself that you see yourself as so undesirable, so inept with women, so unwanted, that it's almost like if you were to ever get that kind of fulfillment, it had to be in some completely messed up, screwed up, disgusting, twisted scenario or environment, you know, such that, like, okay, yeah, you would get yours, but it'd be like in such a way that, like, you know, you'd be basically like almost like a cretin or a miserable little worm, you know, to have gotten it in that way. And you know, that's something I realize in myself when I'm in these sorts of states where it's like, okay, a relapse is, you know, inevitably going to happen, or it feels like it's going to happen. And, you know, I feel burnt out, I feel defeated, I feel turned inward. And so if I look at this stuff and I realize, like, I mean, I haven't looked at the stuff, you know, I had some glimpses, but it's sort of like realizing that, you know, whether I turn to it and I end up relapsing or not, it's not what I really want. And I don't think it's what most of us really want. you know? It's just that we feel that we can't get what we really want, that we'll never be able to attain that. And we turn to this as a means of somehow, like, soothing ourselves, you know? Even though we know it's not okay. And I don't mean it's not okay to fap. I mean, it's not okay to, like, to settle for that sort of stuff. Even if it was thrown at your feet and you could actually have it and no one was going to, you know, judge you, or you weren't going to be punished for it, or whatever. Whatever that may be, you know, it varies from person to person, but, you know, it's not what we really want. And I don't know, like, if in a year from now I'm looking back and my finances are so, you know, so well off that, like, I could actually go and pursue all the things that I really want to pursue, aside from getting with this particular girl or that particular girl, that I could actually go out and really live my life. You know, maybe a lot of this stuff will seem kind of like, oh man, you know, I can't believe I got so bent out of shape about that, or whatever, you know. But I don't know right now, you know. I don't really have the drive to get back up and out there again, you know. And it really is a case of, like, being zeroed out, you know. Because, like, right now, it's like, in reality, I'm pretty much nobody. You know, I used to have the job title that I had. I used to be this, you know, basically, you know, this up-and-coming student in these classes, or in this class. I was making progress towards that. I used to have a lot of other things going for me. And now I'm sitting here and it's like, I'm just, you know, to folks who watch my channel, I'm ascesis catharsis, you know. To most people out there, I'm just some guy sitting in a car, you know, on the street. Sounds like I'm talking to myself, but I'm recording a video, you know. To those who know me personally, yeah, I have my, like, actual name. Those people who knew me from the past, well, I'm that guy from the past, you know, whether I was a spazoid or a weirdo or a loser or a creep or just some guy, you know, or whatever. But in the grander scheme of things, like, I truly feel like, you know, basically zeroed out, basically. And I don't have the drive to bounce back right now, you know. Maybe it would take me a month or two to bounce back. And it's almost like I would have to hit rock bottom in a mental, emotional sense, and a Nofap sense to basically do that. And I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to change my approach. Maybe I'll have to go back to the 2-tiered, you know, levels and say, okay, I had a Nofap hard mode relapse, but, you know, Nofap easy mode, I haven't fapped, you know, that sort of thing. Like, literally no fap. I don't know. You know, for those who care, maybe leave a comment down there, you know, hopefully before I make some drastic decision, you know, but it's a really tough spot I'm in right now, I feel. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I hate sitting here and making some, you know, video where I'm, like, being all, you know, depressive or being a downer about things, because it doesn't feel great. And it doesn't feel great to be putting out the kind of content that, you know, it's not uplifting. Doesn't make people feel great to, like, watch this sort of stuff and think, like, oh, you know, look at this guy, did 6 months and look what happened to him, you know, that sort of thing. And and it probably doesn't reflect back on them positively. I don't know. You know, the funny thing is, like, I almost, like, as I walked around, I've seen some attractive women, you know, in this neighborhood or elsewhere, and sometimes it almost feels like almost if I just got laid, I'd be sitting here and I'd be like, oh, I feel so great about life. Life is just so awesome, you know. And, you know, it sucks the job, you know, but screw that, you know, on my class, well, you know, whatever, I'll just retake it later, or blah, blah, blah. You know, I'd be able to sort of convince myself that, that I was doing all right in life, you know, that I was doing all right. But, you know, that would still be a lie, you know, and it's sort of like, okay, rather face the cold, harsh truth and make something of it than, you know, live some sort of a lie. But, and I don't know. I really don't know right now. Just don't know. Don't know what I'm gonna do. But anyways, I've gone on long enough, and it's day 182 right now. Who knows? It could end up being day 0, or it could be day 0 hard mode, but you know, day 182 easy mode, whatever. But that's where I'm at right now. Not in that great of a spot, and trying to motivate myself to do like something, you know, with my time. But I don't know. Maybe I'll go work on that method I was working on for the Hamilton microlab star and try and get that done. We'll see. We'll see if that, you know, does anything for me. But I try my dangdest not to relapse. So anyways, I'll see you folks around. Thanks for all those folks who have, you know, decided to subscribe to my channel and, you know, stay subscribed and support me in the comments and, you know, that sort of thing. You know, it means a lot more to me than it might seem. And you know, with that, I'll say, you know, thanks for that, and I'll see you folks around. Bye bye.